For a long time, nighttime didn't feel like rest anymore. I would go to bed tired, but not calm. My body felt wired even when my mind wanted to shut down. Sleep came in short pieces, light, broken, and frustrating. Some nights I would wake up at 2 or 3 and stare at the ceiling, feeling alert for no clear reason. By morning, I wasn't refreshed. I was just worn down. I tried the usual advice: earlier dinners, less screen time, a quieter bedroom, even things that helped a little never seemed to stick. What puzzled me most was how my body felt stressed, even when my day wasn't particularly stressful. That constant on edge feeling made me start looking deeper into what might be happening internally, especially with hormones tied to stress and sleep. That's when cortisol kept coming up. Cortisol is often called the stress hormone, but it's more than that. It follows a daily rhythm. It's supposed to be higher in the morning to help you wake up and lower at night so your body can rest. When that rhythm is off, sleep can suffer. And for many adults, especially as we get older, that balance doesn't always work the way it used to. What surprised me was how small changes at night can influence that rhythm. Not drastic routines, not complicated protocols, just simple, consistent signals that tell the body it's safe to slow down. That's what led me to try a single tablespoon a night. I didn't expect much. I wasn't chasing a miracle or instant results. I just wanted to see if something simple done consistently could help my body settle more naturally. The goal wasn't to knock myself out or force sleep. It was to support the body's own wind down process. Within days, I noticed something subtle but important. My evenings felt calmer. Falling asleep didn't feel like a struggle. And when I woke up during the night, it was easier to drift back instead of lying there alert and restless. Over time, my sleep felt deeper and more complete, the kind that leaves you feeling steadier the next day rather than drained. This isn't about replacing medical care or making promises that work for everyone. It's about understanding how small nighttime habits can influence stress hormones and sleep quality, especially when the body becomes more sensitive with age. In this video, I'll walk you through what I try, why it may help support healthier cortisol patterns, and how gentle, consistent nighttime choices can sometimes make a bigger difference than we expect, particularly when the goal is not to force sleep, but to allow it to return naturally by giving the body the right signals at the right time. NT personal experience increasingly point to something deeper happening inside the body. One of the most overlooked factors is cortisol, a hormone that plays a central role in how alert or calm the body feels across a 24-hour cycle. Cortisol is not bad by nature. It is essential for waking up, maintaining blood pressure, and responding to daily demands. The problem begins when its timing is off. In a healthy rhythm, cortisol rises in the early morning to help the body wake up and gradually declines throughout the day, reaching its lowest point at night. This drop is what allows the nervous system to slow down and prepares the body for sleep. As people age, this rhythm can become disrupted. Cortisol may stay elevated later into the evening, even when there is no obvious stress. The body feels tired but internally alert, creating that familiar sensation of being exhausted, yet unable to rest. This misalignment becomes more common with age because the systems that regulate hormones and stress responses lose some flexibility. The brain becomes more sensitive to stimulation, and the body does not reset as efficiently as it once. Even small triggers like late meals, light exposure, or mental activity can keep cortisol slightly elevated at night. Over time, the body begins to associate nighttime with alertness rather than recovery. What makes this especially frustrating is that the stress does not always feel emotional. Many people say they do not feel anxious or worried, yet their sleep remains light and broken. This is because cortisol-driven alertness can operate quietly in the background. The heart rate stays a bit higher. Breathing remains shallow. The nervous system stays on standby. The result is waking up during the night or feeling unrested in the morning without understanding why. Another challenge is that common sleep solutions often miss this hormonal component. Sedatives and sleep aids may force unconsciousness, but do not necessarily restore the natural cortisol rhythm. This can lead to temporary relief without addressing the underlying issue. Over time, reliance on these solutions may even make the body less responsive to its own calming signals. As adults move past midlife, the body increasingly depends on clear cues to transition from day to night. Without those cues, cortisol may remain active well past bedtime. This is why nighttime routines become more important than ever. The final moments before sleep act like instructions to the body, telling it whether to stay alert or begin shutting down stress responses. Understanding this shift changes how sleep problems are viewed. Instead of asking why sleep is broken, the more useful question becomes why the body is still signaling wakefulness at night. Once cortisol timing is considered, sleep difficulties after 50 start to make sense, not as a failure of willpower or routine, but as a biological rhythm that needs gentle guidance rather than force, especially when the goal is not to knock the body out, but to help it relearn when it is safe to let go and rest naturally as part of a healthy daily cycle, rather than fighting against internal signals that were once automatic but now require consistent support to realign over time. Once cortisol timing is understood, the next question becomes how the body actually responds to change, especially later in life. Many people assume that fixing sleep or stress requires major effort, strict routines, or forceful relaxation techniques. But the body does not respond best to pressure, particularly as it ages. What research and experience consistently show is that the nervous system is far more influenced by small, repeated signals than by occasional intense efforts. Cortisol does not drop simply because we want it to. It responds to cues that tell the body whether it is safe to stay alert or safe to rest. These cues come from light exposure, eating patterns, breathing, posture, and even the predictability of evening routine. When those cues are inconsistent, cortisol remains cautious. It stays slightly elevated, keeping the body prepared for action even when nothing is happening. This is where small nighttime habits become powerful. A gentle, repeatable action done at the same time each evening gives the body something it can recognize. Over time, this repetition creates expectation. The nervous system begins to anticipate rest instead of remaining on guard. This shift does not happen instantly, but it builds quietly as the body learns that night follows the same pattern again and again. One of the reasons this approach works better than aggressive interventions is that it avoids triggering resistance. Forced relaxation often backfires because trying to relax is still a form of effort. Effort keeps cortisol engaged. In contrast, a simple habit that feels easy and familiar lowers resistance and allows the body to respond naturally. There is no performance to judge and no outcome to chase, which removes mental pressure that can otherwise keep the stress response active. Consistency matters more than intensity because cortisol rhythms are shaped by timing, not force. A small signal delivered reliably is more effective than a strong signal delivered occasionally. This is especially true after 50, when the body becomes more sensitive to disruption and less tolerant of extremes. The nervous system prefers reassurance over command. Another important aspect is predictability. When evenings feel different every night, the body remains uncertain. Uncertainty keeps cortisol elevated. A steady nighttime cue reduces that uncertainty. The body begins to associate that moment with safety, slowing heart rate, softening breathing, and preparing for sleep without conscious effort. Over time, these small signals add up. They help retrain the internal clock rather than overriding it. Instead of fighting stress hormones, the body is guided into a rhythm that supports lower nighttime alertness and deeper rest, which is why gentle, repeatable habits often succeed where stronger sleep strategies fail, particularly for adults whose systems no longer reset automatically and require calm, consistent guidance to shift out of alert mode and into a state where rest can happen naturally without struggle. With an understanding of how cortisol responds to small, consistent signals, attention naturally turns to what happens when a simple 1 tablespoon habit is added at night. The value of this routine is not in the substance itself acting like a sedative, but in how it supports the body's natural wind down process. Unlike sleep aids that force the body into unconsciousness, this approach works by aligning with digestion, breathing, and nervous system signaling in a gentle, supportive way. As people age, digestion slows in the evening, and the body becomes more sensitive to how and when food is consumed. A small, measured amount taken consistently at night provides a predictable digestive cue without overloading the system. This cue can help shift the body away from alertness and toward rest. The act itself becomes part of a signal that the day is ending, especially when it is done calmly and without rushing. The nervous system responds not only to what is consumed, but to the ritual surrounding it. Taking the same simple step each night creates familiarity. Familiarity reduces vigilance. When the brain recognizes a routine it associates with safety, cortisol has less reason to stay elevated. This does not mean stress disappears, but it means the body no longer treats bedtime as a moment that requires readiness. Breathing patterns often change during this process. The body naturally slows down when it senses a consistent nighttime routine. Breaths become deeper and more regular. This shift supports parasympathetic activity, which is responsible for rest and recovery. As breathing steadies, heart rate follows, and the internal environment becomes more suitable for sleep. Another benefit of a 1 tablespoon routine is that it does not demand attention or effort. There is no mental checklist, no pressure to do it right, and no fear of missing out on results. This lack of performance anxiety is important because stress hormones are sensitive to mental strain. A habit that feels effortless is more likely to calm cortisol rather than activate it. Over time, this routine influences sleep continuity rather than just sleep onset. Many people find that falling asleep is not the main issue. Staying asleep is. When cortisol remains elevated at night, it can trigger early awakenings or restlessness. A supportive nighttime habit helps maintain a calmer internal state across the night, reducing the likelihood of sudden alertness during sleep. What makes this approach especially practical is that it fits easily into real life. It does not require isolation, silence, or perfect conditions. It can be practiced even on busy evenings or during travel. Its simplicity allows it to remain consistent, which is what the body ultimately responds to. As the habit becomes familiar, it quietly reinforces the message that night is a time for release rather than readiness, helping the body move toward deeper rest without force, without sedation, and without disrupting existing routines that people rely on for stability as they age, especially when the goal is not instant results, but gradual improvement that feels natural and sustainable over time. When trying a new nighttime habit, especially one connected to sleep and stress hormones, it's important to approach expectations realistically. Many people hear stories of quick improvements and assume the same timeline will apply to them. In reality, the body responds at its own pace, and that pace can vary widely depending on age, health history, and current stress load. Some individuals notice subtle changes within a few days, such as feeling calmer in the evening or falling asleep more easily, while others experience a slower, more gradual shift that unfolds over weeks. One of the most common mistakes people make is turning a gentle habit into a performance. They begin watching the clock, monitoring every sensation, or worrying about whether it is working. This mindset can unintentionally keep cortisol active because evaluation itself is a form of mental stress. The nervous system does not respond well to pressure, especially at night. The habit works best when it is treated as a simple part of the evening, not a test or challenge. Another issue is inconsistency. Skipping nights, changing timing frequently, or pairing the habit with stimulating activities can weaken its effect. Cortisol rhythms are shaped by predictability. When the body receives mixed signals, it stays cautious. This doesn't mean perfection is required, but it does mean that a generally consistent pattern helps the body feel safe enough to relax. Returning to the habit calmly after missed nights is far more effective than abandoning it due to frustration. People also sometimes expect the habit to override poor sleep environments or high stimulation. Bright lights, late night screen use, heavy meals, or emotionally charged conversations can all keep cortisol elevated. While a small nighttime routine can help, it works best as part of a calmer overall wind down period. Even small adjustments such as dimmer lighting or quieter evenings can amplify its effect. It's also important to remember that this approach is supportive, not corrective. It doesn't force the body to behave differently. It encourages the body to return to a rhythm it already understands. This means progress may feel subtle rather than dramatic. Calmer evenings, fewer restless moments, or smoother transitions into sleep are signs the body is responding, even if sleep is not immediately perfect. Perhaps most importantly, patience plays a critical role. Hormonal rhythms develop over time and shift gradually. Expecting immediate transformation can create disappointment that undermines consistency. When the habit is allowed to work quietly in the background without pressure or urgency, it becomes easier for the body to respond. The goal is not to control sleep or cortisol directly, but to create conditions that make it easier for the nervous system to settle naturally, night after night, allowing small improvements to accumulate in a way that feels sustainable and respectful of the body's limits, rather than demanding quick results that rarely last. As this nighttime habit becomes more familiar, its real value begins to show in how easily it fits alongside the rest of daily life. Many people worry that adding something new will conflict with medications, supplements, or existing routines, especially when sleep has already been fragile. What makes this approach different is that it does not compete with other forms of care. It does not demand changes to prescriptions, and it does not require restructuring the entire evening. Instead, it works quietly in the background to supporting the body rather than overriding it. For adults over 50, this compatibility matters. The body often functions best when changes are gradual and non-disruptive. A simple 1 tablespoon habit does not shock the system or introduce unpredictability. Because it is gentle, it allows the nervous system to remain calm instead of bracing for something new. This sense of stability helps cortisol respond more naturally, reinforcing healthier nighttime patterns over time. Another important aspect is how this habit influences long-term consistency. Many sleep strategies fail because they are too demanding to maintain. When effort drops, so does follow through. In contrast, a routine that feels easy is more likely to be repeated night after night. Over time, repetition matters more than intention. The body does not need motivation, it needs familiarity. When the same signal appears regularly, the internal clock adjusts quietly. People also report a shift in how they relate to sleep itself. Instead of approaching bedtime with worry or anticipation of another restless night, the routine creates a sense of closure. The day feels complete. This emotional shift can be just as important as the physical one because anxiety about sleep is itself a powerful driver of cortisol. Reducing that anxiety removes one more obstacle to rest. This habit also adapts well to changes in routine. Travel, busy evenings, or unexpected events do not derail it because it does not depend on perfect conditions. This flexibility helps maintain momentum even when life becomes unpredictable. Rather than being all or nothing, it bends without breaking. Over weeks and months, the cumulative effect becomes more noticeable. Nights feel steadier, mornings feel less abrupt, energy during the day becomes more balanced. These changes may not feel dramatic, but they are meaningful. They reflect a body that is no longer fighting itself at night, but working with its natural rhythms again. What makes this approach sustainable is that it respects the realities of aging. It does not ask the body to perform or improve on command. It simply provides a consistent cue that night has arrived and that alertness is no longer required, allowing cortisol to follow a healthier pattern at its own pace, while supporting sleep in a way that feels natural, manageable, and aligned with the kind of long-term balance that becomes increasingly important as the body grows more sensitive and less tolerant of forceful interventions over time. As we come to the end of this discussion, it's worth remembering that better sleep and healthier cortisol patterns rarely come from forcing the body to change. For most adults over 50, progress happens when the body is given consistent signals that it is safe to slow down. This 1 tablespoon nighttime habit is not a cure and not a replacement for medical care, but it can be a simple way to support the body's natural rhythms when practiced patiently. If you're managing sleep challenges, stress, or hormone-related concerns, always continue following your healthcare provider's guidance and never stop or change prescribed treatments without professional advice. Small routines work best when they complement medical care rather than compete with it. Sometimes the most meaningful changes come from doing less, not more. Ending the day with a calm, familiar ritual can help the body release alertness and return to rest, naturally allowing sleep to feel less like a struggle and more like something the body remembers how to do again over time.